We've got the Mercedes Benz EQB. It's all electric.
One of our favorite small SUVs, electrified.
Here we go.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, sport mode.
I can feel my toast I had for breakfast moving around on there.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, that's the thing about electric cars. All that snap, quiet, smooth, all that. We don't say what's under the hood, we say what's under the floor of this EQB.
The EQB 350 is the only model available in Canada. There are more options in the US. This dual motor SUV makes 288 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. It has a 70.5 kilowatt-hour battery with 356 kilometers, 221 miles of range. It goes 0 to 100 in 6.2 seconds and 0 to 60 in 6 seconds.
In the US, there are two more models available. The EQB 250 Plus, which is front-wheel drive, and it has 188 horsepower and 245 miles of range. There's the EQB 300. It's all-wheel drive with 225 horsepower and 232 miles of range. We're focusing on the EQB 350. Mercedes Benz, gotta have nice stuff in it. What are the key standard features?
The base trim comes with a 10.25 inch digital driver display and a 10.25 inch touchscreen, wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a wireless charger, power front seats with memory, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, leatherette upholstery, a panoramic sunroof, foot-activated tailgate release, over-the-air software updates, and 1 year of Mercedes Me Connect services. In the US, heated front seats and a heated steering wheel are not standard, but an option on every trim.
Of course, Andrea already has it in Sport.
Of course.
What else can we put it in?
Got to put it in S for subscribe, and if you can hit that notification bell, you'll be notified when all of our reviews drop, and then you can watch them.
And we do this, the Cup of Car Review, twice a week. The first one drops on Wednesday.
We put another one out on Saturday.
So make sure you like and subscribe, but also follow along on Instagram. It's Motormouth_Andrew to see what's going on behind the scenes. For me, it's Motormouth_Auto, and the links are below the like button. So in the subcompact luxury crossover segment, I got a real sweet spot for the regular GLB. I just love the boxy shape.
Yeah.
It's real utility, kind of funky at the same time. Does this live up to what that car is?
Now, when you say subcompact, really that's shocking, isn't it? Because this is a big vehicle, but it's based on the same platform as the GLA, which is subcompact.
Yeah, and available with a third row. So this is really tidy packaging, and when we go through it, you'll be surprised by just how much room it has, and it's a good candidate to be electrified.
One of the things I really like about this EQB is that it feels sporty for an electric vehicle. The suspension feels a little bit firmer. The steering feels a little bit heavier, not overwhelmingly heavy, but it's an EV that actually feels sporty, and that's hard to come by.
Not the brakes. We're going to touch on this again in Questions, Coffee, and Cars. But they really have to work on the modulation of the brake pedal. Modulating the brake is really tricky with their electrified cars.
This is a great transition between going from gas to electric. There's a lot of similarities with this, including the suspension that I just talked about. This has got four-wheel independent suspension, which creates this sporty drive, yet it's still comfortable, especially with the available adaptive damping. I'm a big fan of controlling the regen braking through the paddle shifters. I just think it's so easy and natural, and that's the case with this EQB, but it never brings the vehicle to a complete stop. Almost, but not quite.
So this is slightly different than the regular GLB. You can see from a distance has the same overall body shape, but it's the finer details they've modified, like they've gone with a grill-less front of the car, and at the back they put a light bar side to side to make it look like the bigger EQS vehicles.
Now you'll notice that there are some blue accents on the wheels, but we've got regular door handles. It just does regular stuff.
And it's just what I like. Some of my favorite electric cars are the ones based on conventional gas models because they don't make it freaky. It's the same as what we're used to. Yeah, stay away from freaky.
Some people who want an EV want to fly under the radar and not kind of stand out on the road, and then there's others who want an EV that looks like an EV. This comes standard with the LED lighting system across the front and the rear. It gets 19-inch wheels and a tire repair kit. Now, if you want to up the sportiness of this vehicle, there's packages to do that, and you can add the AMG body styling, AMG wheels, as well as the black exterior accents.
And just like the outside, they didn't go all freaky on the inside. They left the goodness of the GLB intact. I love the MBUX infotainment system.
Yeah.
It's really good. You still have the trackpad here. They haven't evolved to the single tablet style infotainment screens we're seeing with their new electric vehicles. I kind of like this halfway measure.
This is a pretty special vehicle if you like this MBX system. Although it's older and it doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you can buy an aftermarket dongle, plug it in, and there you will get your wireless. But get it while you can, because this is going away. Mercedes Benz has moved to the large screen at the center console, and everything or most features are done in that screen.
Now, this brand knows how to put cars together. It's beautifully put together, all kinds of nice materials and varying kinds of materials as well, from aluminum to shiny hard plastic to some interesting motifs on the dashboard. You're not getting an interior like this in a Tesla.
This interior is quite comfortable. I find the seats comfortable. There's enough lumbar and thigh support. You've got the 64 color ambient lighting in here, which we are so used to from Mercedes Benz. And then of course, the panoramic sunroof that opens.
Opens? What?
In Canada, you've got one set price and then you add packages or a la carte items to that. And in the US, you have 3 trims. So in Canada, if you add something like the premium package for $5,000 Canadian,
$5,000.
yes,
Wow.
that will get you the Burmester sound system, which we have in our test model, along with a head-up display, a 360 camera, and the MBUX augmentation video with navigation.
So when you have the navigation on and you want to turn, or it's telling you to turn left, there'll be an arrow on there that says turn left. Kind of gimmicky, but there you go. Now in the United States, if you go one up from the base model to the exclusive trim, it adds a wireless charger, advanced sound system, and the hands-free power liftgate. The top trim adds the Burmester sound system and a surround view monitor. Now, Andrea referenced this earlier. This is based on the same platform as the GLA, but when you look at the back seat with the seat slid all the way back, there is an enormous amount of leg room, and you can slide those seats forward to make access into the available third row seats.
Comparing the EQB to the Tesla Model Y with the third row, the Tesla has over half an inch more front row legroom. Second row legroom is also bigger in the Model Y, offering over an extra 3 inches of legroom. Third row legroom is bigger in the EQB, with an extra 3.5 inches of space.
And when you lift the power tailgate on this top model, you get a very large and usable cargo area. One thing I like about this, the opening is really quite square, making it easy to load things in and out.
Cargo space between the Model Y and the EQB is pretty close, whether you look at overall cargo space or space behind the second and third rows. The Model Y gets a front trunk, the EQB does not.
So Tesla has more second row legroom, but this has more third row legroom. And as I mentioned, you can slide that second row forward, and the amount of space for third row passengers actually not terrible, which is quite surprising. All right, let's get into your questions.
Time now for questions, coffee, and cars.
Your questions from Instagram.
Are the brakes still weird? How initially you don't feel the brake action much until you step harder on the brake pedal. I read that some owners find that there is this weird transition between regen braking and actual brake disc slowing the vehicle. Hopefully Mercedes has fixed this issue.
All of that is true. This isn't as bad as the EQS SUV we drove.
No, that one was real. We did complain to Mercedes-Benz about that, and they said, yes, we are aware. The brakes were really soft.
Yeah, so what is happening is exactly what you outlined. So the car tries to use regen as much as it can. That's using drag from the electric motor.
Yeah.
And then it defaults to the actual friction brakes. But the transition isn't perfect. It's better in this than the EQS.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, it's kind of a sponge. The thing is the braking isn't progressive.
No, a little bit grabby, I would say. You know, it's interesting, when I first got in this and started driving it, I didn't notice it as much because the EQS SUV was so dramatic. But once you pointed this out, I paid closer attention, and you're right, the brakes are soft. Having driven both the electric and non-electric versions, which one handles and drives better?
Oh, the AMG version we had last year.
Yeah.
Holy man, that thing was hot.
So fun.
Yeah, so that had the high performance turbo 4-cylinder, the dual clutch transmission,
That
great,
sound.
great suspension. That's like a go. You know what it was? It was like a larger John Cooper Works Countryman.
I think it's tough to compare. This is an electric vehicle, so I think we have to be fair when we're talking about, this incredible AMG version. It's tough to beat. This does things differently. You get that instant torque when you accelerate. The cabin remains pretty quiet and it's quite smooth. So different, aren't they?
Well, we were coming here and I had to merge and get in front of a big truck, or I was going to be stuck behind the truck.
Yeah.
And I just hit the throttle, poof, it was done. So it's quick in its own way.
$75,000 is a very hefty premium to pay for the electric version of the GLB. Although I haven't seen personally the Audi Q4, it is cheaper and range is superior, not by much though. Yeah, definitely range is very close to this for the Q4. Q4 is different. I mean, Q4 doesn't offer this kind of interior design, this grade of materials, lots of piano black and plastic in the Q4.
There is in here too. They just do a nice job of making it look better because they have these fancy looking turbine vents on the dash, the polished aluminum and the different looks. So they cover the shiny hard plastic quite well. But what you're getting available with this that you're not getting with the Q4 is the option for a third row. And this is roomier. There's no question about it.
Yeah, the third row is tiny. It's going to cost you an extra $1,300 Canadian and about $1,250 in the US. But if you need to move some extra smaller children in a pinch, this is a great option for that. Price-wise, I think it's priced much too high for what you get. It's also missing features like ventilated front seats, heated rear seats, and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto because this is the older MBUX system. We see Tesla prices have dropped. I'm sure when Mercedes Benz priced this vehicle, maybe the Model Y in Canada was up at $89,000 Canadian. It is no longer. It is under $70,000.
Yeah, but you can get a third row in that. That too is tiny.
Yep.
But this is more of a conventional SUV shape. That's kind of a rounded sort of thing, but you have to decide. It is more expensive. And now it's time for our hot topic. What's this one, Andrea?
Range anxiety is still a thing. Friends that have used electric cars say they are always nervous about their range.
Well, Andrea, I think this is really the problem for this brand, to have a vehicle that's more expensive than the Tesla Model Y since they dropped their pricing and doesn't have anywhere near the range. You've really got to want to love to have a Mercedes to get this because it doesn't make sense financially.
No, not at all. And I think you're right. Range anxiety is a real thing for people. And most will talk to us about it and say, I really want 300 miles or 485 kilometers of range. That makes me feel comfortable when I'm doing road trips. The other issue with this EQB is that it can only charge up to speeds of 100 kilowatt. Now, when you're charging at home and you're using a level 2 charger, that is not going to affect you at all. You're going to be just fine. But if you're somebody who is on the road often and is doing long road trips, then you might find it a little bit more challenging, that you are going to be sitting at a charger for longer.
This is really, in my opinion, a stopgap vehicle. I don't think this thing's going to be around for long. I think they needed to get something in the marketplace of this size quickly, and they've engineered this. But, I think it's going to be more like the other larger SUVs, probably coming sometime soon. When, we don't know.
I think my biggest concern about this, with the charging capability, the lower range that's available, and it lacks even in horsepower, although it's an EV and you get that instant torque, so I'm not so much bothered by that. But I think resale value, because there are other vehicles that offer a lot more.
So we kind of hinted a little bit in the charging times. Can this thing even tow? And more in our vital stats.
Let's start with pricing. We'll do Canada first and then move on to the US. The EQB 350 starts at just over $75,500. In the US, the 350 Premium is just over $60,500, and the top Pinnacle trim is just over $64,000. The EQB does not qualify for the federal EV rebate of $5,000 in Canada or a tax credit in the US.
The EQB comes with a 9.6 kilowatt onboard charger. With a DC fast charger with speeds up to 100 kilowatts, you can charge from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. With a level 2 charger, from 10 to 100% in 6.5 hours. The EQB is not rated for towing. The warranty is 4 years, 80,000 kilometers, or 50,000 miles. So you want something electrified that's got 3 rows of seats. Not that many options. Let's get into it.
For your consideration, 4 vehicles for you to consider.
Up first is the Tesla Model Y long range with 384 horsepower and 531 kilometers, 318 miles of range. It has a starting price just under $70,000.
The VinFast VF9 with 402 horsepower and an unofficial range of 594 kilometers. It has a starting price of just under $104,000.
The Volvo EX90 with 496 horsepower and 480 kilometers, 300 miles of range. Pricing has not been announced yet.
The Kia EV9 with up to 379 horsepower, 480 kilometers or 300 miles of range. Pricing has not been announced yet.
So there are 4 3-row electric vehicles for you to consider.
Lightning round. 2 things we like, 2 things we like to see improved.
I like the sporty handling.
I love the packaging of this.
What I'd love is for Mercedes Benz to tweak those brakes.
And adjust the price.
The EQB is sporty and fun. It just might be the right EV for you.
The problem is Tesla's dropped the price of the Model Y. They have to sharpen their pencil.